Hey guys, so we're back here at the pump track and I want to show you how to break down the motions of a bunny hop. And I recognize that this is a skill that takes some practice, and this isn't necessarily a quick win skill, but it's one that really makes a difference in being able to break down and properly execute. The way I recommend to practice this best is to find something like a small roller, something that has some curve to it, something that is not as threatening as, say, a square-edged curb, but also not something as small as just a stick. And the reason being, we need to make sure that we're executing properly and lifting high enough. If we're just riding over something like a stick, it's very easy to just lift, and we don't really execute the motion. Remember, as we're showing in our other videos, which you haven't seen, I recommend going back and watching. I'll link them right here. We want to execute a row anti-row motion. This is not a like yank up on the bars motion. This is a stand up and row. I'm going to show you now how to execute that, and we want to use something like this so that we can separate the motions, right? So we're going to concentrate just on our front wheel first, and then we'll worry about our back wheel separately, and then we'll put the two together. So first I'm going to show you what that whole motion looks like so we can put it into context of where we're heading. Now let's just focus on our front wheel. That way we don't worry about having to yank up on the pedals or any bad habits that we might have. We can just focus on getting our front wheel up. And remember, we're aiming to tip the bike back. So we're not lifting, we're going from an anti-row, which would be hip hinged like this, and we're standing up and pulling the bars back to us, which will tip the bike back. And I'll show you what that looks like.
Watch as we stand up tall and row the bars back towards our hips. Notice we're not pulling up. Instead, we're standing up tall from a deep hip hinge, and we're pulling the bars straight back, and this is what tips the bike back.
You can see that gives us our front wheel lift. And the height that we get that will always determine how high we can get the bike. We'll never be able to make up for that if we're not able to execute this motion first. That's something that should be practiced on its own. Now, the next motion we need to practice is getting the rear wheel up off the ground, and we're doing that by arcing the bike. The reason I like to do this over a roller is because it's very akin to things that we would see in the trail. You could put a log here, you could put a downslope and a drop. Anytime the trail is tipping downwards, this aggressive anti-row motion is very useful for tipping the bike to match the terrain. What we're going to do is we're going to roll in, get our front wheel on top, and the moment the front wheel is on the crest, we're going to execute an aggressive anti-row. And I'll show you what that looks like.
As we roll in, notice that I'm standing up tall and I'm relatively forward on the bike. As the front wheel gets on top of the roller, then I execute an aggressive anti-row. As we watch it again, watch how far back my hips go in this motion. This is how we tip the bike forwards without pulling up on the pedals. Let's look at just the anti-row motion, and we'll see how quickly and aggressively we need to go from standing up tall to fully hip hinged. That's less than a second for that whole motion to happen. Most riders will need to work very hard on that motion right there to do it at full speed.
Those two motions are basically it for hopping. The only thing we need to add to make it a real hop, like an explosive hop, is to get heavy first. And sometimes this gets confused with the old way of like manualing into the thing, but what I find is that leads to throwing your weight back, which only lets you throw your weight forward to arc the bike. And that leads to a very nose-heavy landing. It makes the bike really squirrely. And it also leads to muscling the bike around. What we're doing here, we're using power and speed to do it, but we're not using like aggressive muscle or tension to do it. So I'm going to show you where that timing would be with getting heavy, and that will be basically the last thing that puts this all together. But I think it's very important to practice both motions separately. If we can't do them separately, we're going to find it very hard to execute the two of them together, and especially with the speed and quickness that we need to do.
To turn this into a hop, I push down through my feet and I complete a full row followed by a full anti-row to arc the bike into a hop. We'll break it down here. So now there's my starting position right here. I'm pushing down through my feet. I'm going to start my row with my hips going forward, arms pulling straight back. Now I'm topped out. From this position, I'm going to go into an aggressive anti-row to fully arc the bike into a hop. Let's see it one more time, all put together into a super clean, full hop.
And that's it. I hope that breaks it down further for you. And please fire away with questions, comments. We want to make these videos to help you guys succeed. So let us know what we need to add and what's still unclear for you. And we'll see you out on the trails.